Last week, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump had the first telephone conversation after winning with Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to the Kremlin, the two men agreed that the U.S. Russia now completely satisfied. The two countries will start a new dialogue based on equality, mutual respect and non-interference in each other's internal affairs. Guardian assessing the two men meet in the spring or summer of 2017 was not hard to imagine the nature and the first dialogue between Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin will shape international relations. Not hard to predict what Putin wants his counterparts from the United States. First of all, Russia may want the U.S. to lift sanctions imposed after its 2014 merger. Crimea. Europe has imposed similar measures. Secondly, Putin may want U.S. recognition of Russian sovereignty for Crimea. Trump agreed. No one was sure whether this problem can occur. Next will be the issue of Syria. Russian leaders may recommend the U.S. alone requires President Bashar al-Assad must go. Instead, Moscow wants Russia to cooperate in the international fight against terrorism. Lastly would be the problem position. The Kremlin feels the school has the right to have a certain influence, which may include the republics of the former Soviet Union, Central and Eastern European countries. Moscow will want to talk about multipolar order or the poles of civilization. An allusion to speak Russian is the powerful force in the world on par with the U.S. Putin may want to correct the Yalta Treaty in 1945, under which the US, USSR and UK have created Europe post-World War II. Mr. Trump has admitted Russia, there are legitimate interests in the region used to be the home of them, and he also stated skepticism about the future of NATO. President-elect announced the United States would not protect the country, refused to contribute to the budget of the military bloc. The spokesman Dmitry Peskov. Putin. The two leaders share approach in terms of ideas in foreign policy. Their views, surprisingly similar, Mr. Peskov said in New York. Trump wants and Putin. But Mr. Trump would want from Putin. This is difficult to predict. As a negotiator, bravery not easily make concessions. Mr. Trump will certainly require something from the Russian side. But the fact that Moscow does not have much to discuss with the U.S., in addition to improving relations bilateral, are overcast, according to The Guardian. Mr. Putin could make concessions on issues. Edward Snowden, former CIA officer accused of espionage by U.S. intelligence and evasion in Moscow since 2013. The duration of Snowden asylum here will end in next summer. Can imagine that, someday the government will announce Snowden Russia had violated the terms of residence and extradited to the U.S. However, this scenario is still not enough to explain why Mr. Trump publicly supported Putin so strong. During the U.S. election campaign, Putin is the only international leader Mr. Trump repeatedly for praise, and even billionaires also called Putin a strong leader. Obama. Journalists have tried to find out whether what Putin has leverage to Mr. Trump or not. Clues may be mentioned that Paul Manafort, former campaign manager of Mr. Trump, Mr. Manafort known 2007 to 2012 as an advisor to former President of Ukraine Viktor Yanukovych, who fled to Russia after he was deposed in 2014. In addition to advising Yanukovych to change the face and image in public, Manafort also developed relationships with influential tycoon. If these, Dmitry Firtash and Oleg Deripaska, who has invested in the business activities of Manafort, and some of which are related to the real estate in New York. No one can know the Russian billionaire relating to the estate of Donald Trump or not, as no one can be certain whether Mr. Putin has in hand secret weapon. What makes the mouth-first American billionaire never let a word criticizing Putin, as the historian Francis Fukuyama wrote in The Financial Times. For months, there have been many speculations that Russian intelligence had information beholding something that Mr. Trump to be afraid, but they all cannot be verified. The last time Mr. Trump to Moscow is May 11, 2013. The Miss Universe contest was held here. With Putin, 2016 was a great year. Last week, the pro-Russian presidential candidate won the election in Moldova and Bulgaria. European Union (EU), while it weakened by a series of crises, including the British decided to leave. Those who follow the right-wing populism is winning. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, female prime minister, who is seen as the leader of the free world, has fallen more prestige. Mainstream ideology of Putin has long been against an Americanization. Until Mr. Trump was elected, many Russians believe they are in a war with the West. With the delicate battle in Syria and Ukraine, also a comprehensive war was imminent. But now Mr. Trump was president, the US can no longer top the list of opponents of the Russian official. In the immediate future, perhaps there will be a warmth between Washington and Moscow for the first time in 15 years. And romance, Trump-Putin could continue for some time.